to be essentially out of it with games to play, that's when things get really hard and things can fray. And we've talked about grit. We've talked about how you have to have it. And I think you speak so much to next year with how you finish here, because everybody knows there's not that much to play for. So let's just take a really hard look and watch what the core grit of this team looks like. And all the, actually people say, well, there's nothing to get done in these next 3 weeks. And I say a huge amount can be done in the next 3 weeks and how we play, and especially the grittiness that we show in a place where it's not necessarily with huge expectations.
So we were playing a cut before you came on from a couple of weeks ago when you were on with us, and you were talking about Kyle Shanahan's sort of track and his resume and his record and stuff looks a lot like Andy Reid's in where he was in Philadelphia to where he is now. And you talked about how Andy Reid has had to reinvent himself, and you sort of mentioned that about Kyle Shanahan. And we've been discussing what that could mean in reinventing yourself. Is it about bringing in another offensive coordinator like he had with McDaniel, where he's still the play caller, but there's more cooks in the kitchen trying to figure this thing out? When you say reinvent yourself, or what Andy Reid has done, what would you say he did do that was successful in his reinvention, and where do the 49ers go? What can Kyle do to change?
So at a 30,000-foot level, what you have to do to reinvent yourself is look what defenses have done to try to answer your latest invention. Like the cool stuff that he was doing. What did defenses do to get used to it and then to defend it? Because in today's NFL, you got 11 guys. You can only deploy them so many ways because it's 11. Like, it doesn't change, and so you might have now created a defensive now overloaded for something that you used to do, and now the reinvention is, okay, I see how you've deployed those guys to try to answer, and here's my answer to that. So it's a constant iteration at the top level of here's my answer back to what you think that you're going to do to stop me. And the truth is, in the NFL today, the rules are so much more against the defense that as an innovative offensive mind, which I say that not to be metaphorical or to just flip it and throw it away. Like, there are 10 really innovative minds in the NFL today, most of them coming from the Shanahan, Andy Reid tree, and they've seen it, and now they're doing it. And so that's the number one thing is you're never going to get me. You might slow me down, but you'll never get me, because the way I look at the world, I'll always have an answer. And that's the reinvention on that level. Then there's also just look at, really great offensive minds. Any coach looks at the talent, looks at the people that are, what are you really good at? What are your weaknesses, so that I don't put you, I put you out in a place to be successful. And there's that part of reinvention, right? It's like new guys every year. Every coach has to do that. And then I think that just gets you to a place where, the beginning of the next season, you show up in the OTAs in April, and you've got, a new way to look at offensive football that doesn't necessarily change. People aren't going to have to relearn a bunch of stuff. It's off of what you've done before. It makes sense. I hope we've joked about this before, when George Seifert, defensive coordinator and then head coach, would roll in after looking at the Cardinals defense and go, this will get him, and hand us a play. And then we'd try to run it, and it was like, frick, we didn't know how to run it. And he was so frustrated. He's like, what do you mean? Like, just follow the lines. Just follow the line. And it's like, no, it doesn't make sense to how we do stuff. And he would be so pissed about it. Like, what are you talking about? And it just shows you the different ways the defensive and offensive minds look at stuff. And so I think that's the art, is putting the players in a place that feels familiar, makes it really hard on defenses, and makes it more, simple and more easy for us. And now we can let our talent come out. That's when an offensive coordinator or a head coach who's calling the plays is really flying, is that the full measure of the athlete comes out. That you see, it's like, oh my gosh, that's everything this guy's got. And that's when, as an athlete, of course, in a team game, when you're just kind of screwed if you're with a coach or with a team or bad owner or something else, you never actually get your full self out there. You fight for it, you give it every week, but you need lots of help to get it out. And so that's why when I say, look, if I could run anywhere, right, I run down to Santa Clara, it's because I think the full measure of who I am as a human, as a player, as an athlete, would come out. And I think that's the dream of every player. And that's why getting Christian to come to our place, getting Trent to choose to come to our place, like, we've had huge things happen that have made a difference in our shop. And now it's time to like I said, Andy Reid reinvented himself. He's 67 years old, and I think this week he's reinventing himself, trying something new, trying something a little different. And the thing about Andy, as I said this a couple weeks ago, he'll call it, because Patrick and Travis and the gang are playful in that way, right? It's like, yeah, Andy, let's give it a shot. But they're smart about it. They're not stupid. They don't just, again, flippant. They don't just do it to throw it out there, and they pull it off a lot of times. And I think that we've got that in us. We've done it before. I remember when we used to go up against Sean Payton a few years ago, and those games, you go back and watch those Saints Jimmy Garoppolo games with, remember he came back and won the game. It's like the plays that we're running, the run plays were like cool, sophisticated stuff you never seen. And then Sean Payton would answer back with something crazy. And then next possession, there was Kyle coming again. I love that when he plays Sean McVay, when he plays LaFleur, when he, like, it always comes out and it's fun. And now it's time to kind of climb the mountain again. And I think that Kyle's done it for 10 years. Andy's done it for 20 years. And his young proteges have done it for 5. And every one of them, I think, have proven to me that I said last week, a couple weeks ago, unless you get tired or lazy, it's in you. So you're going to be able to iterate.
What do you think of the idea, Steve, of Kyle maybe bringing in an offensive coordinator to help him reinvent himself? You brought up all
that's idea. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
absolutely. But it has to make sense to the coach too. Some coaches don't. Like I need to go in my little cocoon and I cook it all up, and then I break it. And then people give me data and the things I need, all the inputs, and then I'm the output. And then in time, Andy and others kind of iterated and found ways to actually empower people to be near them and actually help. And I think there's a trust factor to that and all the rest of it. So I don't think look, Kyle's tough. He's a tough bastard, man. He's not. He's somebody that he'll. But I think he's also vulnerable enough to recognize that if there's something that can help me, I'm in for it.
Okay, fair
because
enough.
I think that's the great innovative minds. I think are open, are recognize when my stuff's not working anymore, or they caught up to me, and that's the vital part of being a great offensive mind, is that you see all this happening, and then you see where you might have holes, and let's go fix them. And if somebody can help me, I gotta believe he's got the humility to go, say, look, come help me. I'd love it. I can't imagine him not.
So how did the great offensive minds that you worked with reinvent themselves? The Bill Walshes, the Mike Holmgrens, the Mike Shanahans, when they didn't have success, how did they reinvent themselves?
It's funny, the West Coast system that Bill started in 1981, we were running it in 1995, 15 years later, and people were still spinning around in a circle. It's like it's amazing to me that innovation that was ahead of anyone else doing it. No one else. And then I think that's what happened. The league saw it in 1984 when Joe and Dan Marino got up against it at Stanford Stadium. And then remember, Joe ran circles around Dan and the Dolphins and like the offense and like what it was doing. And you'd think everyone would have clamored for it, or let's do that. That's working great. Nobody. It wasn't until Mike Holmgren left for Green Bay. It wasn't until Andy Reid got it at Green Bay and left the Packers for the Eagles when people started to, or when Mike Shanahan, maybe the first one, Mike Shanahan left for Denver, which I still pissed at him for that one. But that's when they took all of this and knew how to teach it and innovate. And then what are the innovations that started immediately? John always says, I'm not running this under center. And immediately, and Bill always said, you couldn't do it. You have to be under center. And John said, no. And so Mike said, well, I guess we're running for the shotgun. And then they did, and it was fine. So, and then I think that's what, when the next level of great people follow great people, they iterate off of it. They're off the shoulders of it, and they make it better. And I think that led to people like Peyton Manning, who said, oh, I see what you guys are doing, man and zone reads. I see what you're doing in space and trying to find you know what? I think that I can take it a little bit further by spending an inordinate amount of time together with my receivers so that we have not just 2 answers, just a binary answer, man, zone. I have an answer. Within zone, I have 4 answers. And in man, I have 2 answers. And then, and if we all know what's happening, and I watch them, kind of hone that stuff. And then, year after year after year, I've seen and I've said this, I think I said this last year, I think Bill Walsh, if he was alive today, he'd be giddy about what he's watching, and then he'd also be pissed, right? Because like, why didn't I think of that? And I think that's the kind of people that he bred. And look, I don't want to go too deep into this rabbit hole, but remember, Bill Walsh, at the height of his career, packaged it all up, everything he knew, and handed it to his assistant coaches to go take head coaching jobs. And on the way out, he said, I'll see you in the championship game. And so he was laying the groundwork for competition against us, which did happen, by the way. And but that was the spirit of abundance, and that's the spirit of that's Kyle's spirit. Why are all Kyle's coaches running around the league now? Why are all Andy's coaches running around the league now? Because they got it all from them. They fed from the fountain, and because that's the spirit of Bill, and now they get it, and they can. And if you have the aptitude for it, like Mike McDaniel does, which is an interesting cat, right? He can go do that, and he benefits because Kyle didn't hide it in a corner like this is my proprietary work and this is no one can see it. And I will name other coaches who were very successful who did that. And now look at their trees, and it's not the same.